In this movie, I want to share with you some introductory information about a few tools which are indispensable when it comes to cleanup or retouching or enhancing or improving our photographs. And these are the clone and healing tools. And I want to take a look at these tools so that we can understand how they work and also how we can modify their settings. And then later, in some of the subsequent movies, we'll take a look at how we can apply what we've learned by working on different photographs. Yet let's start off with this demo file here, and let's choose the clone stamp tool. You can do so by pressing the S key or by clicking on the icon for the tool, which is here in the Tools panel. Next, up in the Options bar, you can change the overall brush size by clicking and dragging this to the right. You can also control the brush hardness. Next, you want to make sure your opacity is all the way up, turn Aligned on, and rather than sampling the current layer, I want you to choose All Layers. By choosing this option, it will give you a lot of flexibility so that you can retouch or fix up your image on a separate layer rather than modifying the background layer. Well, now that we've done this, let's go ahead and click into this layer which I've created here. This is a blank layer. It's titled Clone. You can reposition this cursor over your image and then hold down the Option key on a Mac or Alt key on Windows and then click. What this allows you to do is to sample an area which you can then reposition in another part of your image. Here you can see really faintly that I brought this face over simply by sampling that and then clicking over here. Next, click and start to paint, and you can bring that content into another area of your image. And when it comes to cloning, you want to think that what it's doing is it's cloning or it's duplicating or replicating the content in this one-to-one way. And by turning this option on of all layers, you can see that what we've cloned now sits on its own layer. This is really great because it helps us to be flexible. You could choose your Move tool and then click and drag this around a little bit in order to change the position even after you've cloned this. All right, well, let's take a look at another option with the Clone Stamp tool. And now let's go to the letters here on the sail. Select the Clone Stamp tool again if you don't have that selected. And then what I want to do is I want to make my brush smaller by pressing the left bracket key. And here we're going to Option or Alt click on the 2, and I want you to bring the 2 down to the sail down here below. Now, with the previous example, it kind of blended in. In this case, it doesn't at all, because what the Clone Stamp tool does is it brings over exactly what was there. Now, if we change our brush hardness by cranking this up, and then by going and painting here, you're going to see that the edge of what it's bringing over, well, that's much more hard. So the Clone Stamp tool does a great job when you want to bring the exact content over. On the other hand, the set of healing tools, they work really well when you want to blend something together. In order to take a look at these, let's click on this icon here and hold this down and then choose the healing brush. Because the healing brush, well, it operates and works a lot like the Clone Stamp tool. Here we'll press the right bracket key to make our brush a little bigger. Then, rather than healing on the current layer, let's click on the pull-down menu and then choose All Layers. Next, turn on Aligned. You typically want to have this on if you're new to working with this tool. And now let's target the layer, which I've created, just a blank layer titled Heal. Go ahead and Option or Alt click on the 2, and then go ahead and paint on the green sail. Now, when you paint with one of the healing tools initially, well, it looks just like cloning until you let go of your mouse button. When you do that, that's where the magic takes place. What it did was it blended out all of those background colors or the white there into the green. The healing tools do a great job at blending, at trying to help us to make things look seamless. So when you want to get rid of something and have nice, good texture, the healing tools, they really save the day. For example, if we want to work on this too, if you hold down Option on a Mac, Alt on Windows, and then sample a nice area of the sail, you can then paint that nice area over the blemish, and then it will remove it, but also blend in that texture so that you can't see what you've done at all. It fixed all of that up for you. If we turn off the other layers, you can see essentially there's a little bit of texture it brought in, it created from the surrounding areas. All right, well, let's go ahead and turn these layers back on for a moment. Let's take a look at one other healing tool. That's the Spot Healing Brush. The Spot Healing Brush is phenomenal. Again, we want to turn on the option for Sample All Layers. This allows us just to click on a blemish like this dot on the eye. You can click and paint a little bit, and it will remove it. In other words, it will auto-sample from the surrounding areas good texture and try to figure this out for us. And here, as I click and drag over this, you can see it's then removing those elements and creating nice texture for me. You want to use this tool a lot of times when you have those small blemishes that you want to get rid of, and you can go ahead and just quickly click through those problems and get rid of those, or you can always click and paint in order to remove content. Now, while the healing brushes, they're amazing, they don't always work when you have areas of high contrast. If I click and drag, say, across this line here a little bit, so you can see I've done, it's going to kind of mess it up. You can see how it's trying to blend things in, and it creates this smudging kind of artifact as you see along those edges. So it's not a one-to-one tool. If you have high contrast or you need exact replication, sometimes the clone stamp tool is best. And this brings me to an important point. There is no magic bullet retouching tool. Rather, it's about learning how to use all of these tools together in order to come up with the best results. All right, well, let's look at one more tool. In order to do that, let's delete both of these layers. You can click on the layer, then press delete or backspace. What I want to do here is look at how we can retouch a large area at once. We can do that by using another one of these healing type of tools, and that is the patch tool. If you select the patch tool, you'll notice that you don't have an option for using all layers. This is the one tool that you need to duplicate your background layer to work with. So here, press Command-J on a Mac or Control-J on Windows. And why would you use this tool? Well, if you click and drag around something by making a selection around that, you can then select it. With source chosen, or with the source option turned on, you can then click and drag to a nice clean area and then let go, and it will patch that for you. On the other hand, press Command-Z or Control-Z. With destination turned on, you can click and drag, and you can see that it will then replicate this content into these different areas, as I'm doing here. So this tool, it allows us to work with large areas at once. Well, now that we've been introduced to how these tools work and also how we can dial in a few of the tool settings, let's go ahead and continue to talk about how we can use these in a more realistic workflow, and let's do that in the next movie.